Truly, you have a dizzying intellect.
Wait till I get going! Where was I?
Australia.
Yes, Australia!
Wait till I get going! Where was I? It's Australia. Hello and welcome to another episode of That's Absurd. Please elaborate, the science/comedy/idiocy podcast. I am one of your two hosts, Julian Huguet.
And I am the other of the double duo that is the hosts of the show. But my name is three, so I'm really the third. I don't know. Trace Dominguez.
For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, we take questions from you, the audience, from each other, from guests if we have them. The sillier, the weirder, the wilder, the better. And we do our very best to find an actual, plausible, scientifically backed answer, no matter what it may be, no matter how ridiculous or absurd.
All true. These are all facts.
This is a factual statement so far. If we can keep that up through the end of the episode, we'll have done our job.
We get questions from you, the audience. So if while you're listening to this, you want to submit a question, go down into the show notes. There are a variety of different ways you can submit us questions.
Yeah, what's your question, Trace?
My question comes from Tessa, and they wrote, how long would it have taken Westley to build up his immunity to Iocaine powder?
Oh, excitement. Oh, excitement. Before we get into it.
Yeah. We got to get to yes.
Can I geek out a little bit about The Princess Bride?
I mean...
Yes! Okay, good.
Do I have to give you permission?
I'm really excited you tackled this question because this is no exaggeration. I think in 8th grade, I watched The Princess Bride over a 6-month span every single day. I love that movie. I even read the book. And controversial statement.
You did?
The movie was better. But no, the book's good. The book was not what I was expecting. It's I don't want to maybe spoil the kind of running joke of the book. If you haven't read it, intend to read it.
But I need to
now. Okay, well, here's the thing about the book that caught my middle school self completely out was that the book is the only version of the book that exists purports to be an abridged version of a longer book. And so, like, when you read it, the actual author has all these asides about, like, there's all this boring historical stuff that we had to cut out. So just moving on, right? And so, like, I spent a long time looking for the full version, not understanding the joke of the book. But now in hindsight, I can appreciate that that's very funny. Like, I wonder how much the author giggled thinking, like, people like me would do exactly this and be like, where the heck's the real book?
Yeah, I mean, I've read several books like that, but I feel like if I had read it when I was a kid, it would have been much more confusing to try and understand. Wait, the adult here is supposed to be telling me stuff, and they're telling me, and it's confusing how they're telling it to me. But, I think the movie is inarguably a classic, an instant classic. It's a little campy. It's a little low budget. It's really fun. I did, for this episode, email Rob Reiner. He did not email me back yet as of the recording of the episode, but I gave him a long deadline just in case because he's very busy.
I have hope.
Yeah, we have hope. If anybody knows Rob Reiner and isn't listening to this because the episode won't have aired yet, tell him he should have gotten back to us if he didn't by the time this airs. Anyway, so I want to get to yes in case there are people who don't understand who Westley is and what Iocaine powder is. So for the people out there who haven't seen and or read The Princess Bride, Iocaine powder is a poison that is used in a film/book called The Princess Bride. Westley is I don't know if I would call him the main character, but one of the main characters. It does seem to be like the main character. There are a couple of different ones. And I don't want to spoil the movie if you haven't seen it. And I don't know anyone who hasn't seen it, but I'm also older. So if you haven't, go listen. Go watch it. It's great. It's so good. Long story short, though, there's a dude in the movie. He becomes immune to Iocaine powder. And that is that. It's a poison, one of the more deadly poisons known to man, as they say, in the film. So the real question that Tessa is asking here is, can you build up immunity to poison? Is it possible? And how long would it have taken him? Now, that how long part, I don't think we can really answer, because it might not be a thing that he could build up a tolerance to, because it's fiction. However, in the movie that he does say, like, he spent a long time doing this. I want to talk just in general about poison and immunity to poison.
Okay.
So when we were first talking about this, Julian brought up a really nerdy thing, which is Mythratism or Mythratism.
Yes, named
Mythratism. Mythratism.
One of those.
Mythratism.
One of those is right, definitely. Yeah, Mythratism, right? It's what I brought up, because I'm also a history geek, as we've covered, was there was an ancient king named Mythrates back in literally the times of Julius Caesar or slightly before. And he was famous for his love of poisons and for doing purportedly what Wesley did in the film, which is build up an immunity to poison to make himself immune.
So let me tell you a bit about the story of Mythrates, because I looked it up because you brought it up. So tolerance to poison acquired by taking gradually increased doses is called Mythratism. Mythratism. I don't know. Mythrates is what I'm going to call it. So Mythratism. So Mythratism is that. It's building up this tolerance to poison. Mythrates the Sixth, who I'll just call Six from now on.
M6.
Is also known as the Poison King. He lived around 100 BCE in Pontus, which is northeastern Turkey today. And this story of him building up immunity to poison is probably, as we say on this podcast all the time, when it comes to stories about royals, politicians, and celebrities, Julian, what do we say?
It's probably apocryphal. It probably never happened.
It's probably apocryphal and never happened. Never believe the PR spin that history gets to put on itself. So the story is Mythrates the Fifth, so 6 is daddy, 5, was poisoned, probably in a conspiracy by his own wife and other people. So Mythrates V was likely killed by his wife, which, by the way, clearly 6's mom. So 6's mom killed 6's dad. And so 6 and his brother Crestus, who were children at the time, had then their mom, who had killed the dad. Mom took over the kingdom because they would have taken over Pontus, but they were too young, so the widowed wife took over as regent. Then 6 was nearly killed as the victim of several quote-unquote accidents.
Oh my gosh.
This is like full Lion King. 6 fled, came back when he was older, and the mom and brother were still in Pontus. No Hakuna Matata going on here at all. And he became so paranoid of poison because his dad was poisoned and his mom probably did the killing, and his brother was all kind of okay with it. So he would take poison antidotes just in case every day.
Yeah, it's probably cheaper than therapy.
Yeah, maybe. Depends. So he would allegedly drink poison and then drink antidotes. And so I think that's where it likely comes from, that he was like drinking poison and building up immunity. What likely happened is he's inventing and trying to figure out the antidotes for any known poisons to Pontus and Rome and other kind of Mediterranean cultures of the time. So he starts dabbling in toxicology, and he's finding these antidotes for known poisons, which is pretty awesome. And he's doing it, though, in not a great way. Turns out 6, not a super cool guy. He was allegedly feeding the poisons to animals and prisoners and then giving them different mixtures to try and see if they would live. Now, I know in movies you drink a poison, you drink an antidote, and you walk away totally fine. Similar to like you get CPR, wake up because your heart's going, and then continue running after the bad guy. Neither of those things happen in real life. If you've drinking a poison, you probably will never be the person you were before you had the poison. Like, it can really mess up your insides.
You know, I had never thought about it, but that makes perfect sense. Like, of course, if you drank something that's probably like wreaking havoc on your nervous system or some internal organs, just like a little neutralizing like shot glass of liquid isn't going to undo the damage. Yeah, of course.
No.
Of course.
But in a film totally makes sense. In reality,
that's fine.
probably not. So those animals and prisoners were not living well.
You can be mostly dead so long as you're still somewhat alive and still come back.
Inconceivable. Inconceivable. So from a website called World History Encyclopedia, quote, numerous ancient authors, including Pliny the Elder, claimed that he created and regularly ingested a universal antidote for all identified toxins, and it became known as Mithridate or Mithridatium. Mithridate likely contained 50 ingredients or more, and various recipes have survived throughout history. So many people want to know what it is that this guy was drinking, and he kept it as a closely guarded secret because he was afraid of everyone. And so, in one writing, De Medicina, it contains a recipe, and it says, I'm just going to read it really fast. It contains cosmary, sweet flag, hypericum gum, sagapenum, acacia juice, Illyrian iris, cardamom anise, gallic nard, gentian root, dried rose leaves, poppy tears, parsley, cassia, saxifrage, darnel, long pepper, storax, castoreum, frankincense, hippostasis juice, myrrh, apopanax. I swear I didn't make up any of these. Malabathrum leaves, the flower of round rush, turpentine resin, galbanum, cretin, carrot seeds, nard, opabalisum. I'm running out of words. Shepherd's purse, rhubarb root, saffron, nice, ginger, cinnamon, and they would pound it up and take it with honey, and it was to be against poison. They would give it about the size of, quote, an Egyptian bean.
Oh, that means nothing to me now.
What that is,
my modern North American sensibilities. That I don't know. I guess all the people in the Mediterranean would know exactly how big an Egyptian bean is. I have no clue. Are they huge? Are they like a mega M&M, or are they?
Nice throwback.
Thank you.
I was going to throw back to, is it a teaspoon? Does anyone know what a teaspoon is? Will we know what they are in the future when we finally stop using this stupid measuring system? No. No one will know what that is because it doesn't make sense.
Congrats. You've got the cure to all poisons, but nobody knows the dose. You idiots.
So the thing about this is some of these, like sweet flag, that is toxic and also psychoactive. So he is drinking this often, and it's a toxic psychoactive material. Hypericum? Either way. St. John's wort is what it's known as really in English, can cause photosensitivity. Literally, it can make the skin inflamed if you sit in the sun and eat it beforehand. So it also has psychoactive effects, and some of those might be beneficial. So there are things in this that are poison and or quote-unquote toxic and not in the wellness way, in the actual way. Allegedly, he kept a dose of deadly poison in the hilt of his sword, which actually people then critiqued in the history writings. They're like, why would he do that? Because if he's taking an antidote every day, why would he keep a poison on him? Because he's already drank the antidote that morning. But I think a lot of this comes down to what we started with, which is the PR, the mythos, the apocryphal story. It doesn't matter what was in the stuff. He made it known. So much so that 2,000 years later, we're still talking about it, that this dude was drinking quote-unquote poison or antidotes or whatever every single day, and he kept it on him all the time, and he was always ready, and it's just really good security theater.
Yeah,
you know?
That's exactly what I'm thinking. This is kind of an aside, but like part of me wonders if he intentionally has this, oh gosh, I almost cringed thinking of the word, but branding, so people won't even attempt to poison him, or how much of it is people like those in Rome are going to, hear stories and run with it, and eventually like a historian like Pliny the Elder writes it down, and just because you need these great mythical sort of enemies around you and strange kings and fascinating tales to tell, how much of it is column A and column B?
Right, exactly. And it is likely all, apocryphal, or at least spun in some way to make the people who wrote the history either look good or bad, just like anything. But the story ends in all of the different tellings as he couldn't die. He was attacked at the end of his life, and he had to be killed either by a servant, by himself, by someone else had to kill him because he tried to drink poison, but he couldn't. This actually was part of the Third Mithratic War with Rome, where Pontus was defeated by Pompey, and it was crazy because he was driven out by the Romans, and his own sons were like, we're cool with that, bye, and took up sub-kingdoms. So then he went back, and he had the older son killed and took over his kingdom.
Oh, no.
This is all, like, 6 is also not a great dude.
6 killed 7?
Defeated, 6 killed
Oh,
7
no.
and 8.
Oh, God. See, I had heard that,
yeah.
that 7, 8, 9.
I mean, maybe, but it would have been before he was killed by 6. Defeated his younger son, then he went. Actually, he didn't kill 8. We should read my notes before I say things. So his youngest son, he tried to get a rebellion going, and his younger son defeated him. And this is where it gets interesting because he had a wife and daughters. And he tried to attempt suicide by poison, which doesn't make sense. But he didn't die, so then he tries to kill himself. And maybe he was killed himself, maybe he was killed by rebels, maybe he was killed by a guard. The stories vary. But either way, he didn't die from the poison. And in reality, they think, historians are like, chances are he wasn't like immune to poison at all. And in fact, instead, he had a dose of poison on him, just in case. And he split that dose with his wife and daughters, who did die of poison. And he took the rest, but because he was actually allegedly, all the writings describe him as quite a large man who exercised a lot to keep fit because, again, he was paranoid. And so you need a large dose of poison to kill a large person. The dosage makes the poison, and it wasn't a large enough dose to kill him. So he was just severely weakened and was likely then killed. So that's the history part.
Hooray!
Of this. The thing to take away from all of that 10 minutes of history, is, can you build up tolerance to poison? Because this is the most famous example outside of this movie that we're talking about of a person building up tolerance to poison. But all of the history is like, did he? Was he just taking antidotes every day? What? Because there are stories that are like, he was putting poison in the glasses of his guests, and he was doing all of this, like, it was just all of this mythos. And he was like drinking poison in front of his guests to show them his strength. And it's like, but I didn't find any of that when I was really digging into it. I did find those stories, but I didn't find a lot of like, primary sources or even like several secondary sources that say that. I'm not a historian though. If you are one, come and tell me.
Can you imagine getting invited to dine at the house of the Poison King?
Yeah.
Every glass they bring you, you'd be like, no, thanks, I'm good.
I'm good, thanks. I'm fine. Yeah, I'm all right. Water for
me.
Oh,
no, I ate
brought it myself.
A lot before we left.
I ate a lot.
Yeah. Woo-hoo.
I am stuffed to the gills.
That's all you,
wow.
Mythy Bud, Myth 6.
So, Julian, do you know anything about poison? Other than the difference between poison and venom. That one I think is like baseline.
We have to have covered that by this point, right?
Venom is it bites you, poison is you bite it.
Right.
Yeah.
Or find it under the sink and drink it. Also poison.
Don't
do that. Honestly, no, this is a total blind spot for me.
This took me a long time to research because it was so interesting and I knew so little about it. Me too. I was like, I know what poison is. When you say poison, I'm like, oh, poison. And we see it in the news. People like awful humans who live in other parts of the world. I mean, us too, I'm sure. But like poison people, usually with heavy metals and, polonium, for example.
Antifreeze.
Just pulling that out of the air. Antifreeze.
Oh,
yeah.
right. Oh, polonium. Yeah. I see where you're getting. Yeah.
So yes, that you can call that poison. It's not really poison though. Poisons have existed throughout human history and they're usually natural. They come from minerals, animals, or plants. And the most ancient mention I could find was the ancient Sumerians in modern day Iraq. And they, that might have been like 6,500 years ago, 4,500 BCE or so. They had mentions of poison. And people being poisoned. Ancient Egyptian papyrus, there's actually one in the Louvre that writes, "Speak not the name of God under penalty of the peach tree." And the reason they mention that is because peach pits contain prussic acid, which is cyanide, a poison, very deadly poison. And it comes from the pits of peaches. You'd have to, go put them through a process to get it out of them. But it's something that we've known for a long time. And ancient Romans, they documented a lot of poisons. Historians documented the deaths of famous people and royals and politicians. And like we said, Pliny the Elder, who wrote about voluntary euthanasia for the elderly and other poisons that were used in both good ways and bad. So again, mineral, animal, and plant. In mineral, we have salts of lead, mercury, copper, arsenic, antimony. These are known about even in ancient Roman times. The fumes of things like lead and silver and gold were known to be toxic. Things like mercury were known to be poison and toxic as well, and were used in the forming and shaping of hats into the Victorian era. And that would be, you ever heard Mad as a Hatter? It's because they are literally pressing mercury into the felt to like shape it. And then mercury just gets absorbed through your skin as you push it smaller and smaller. It just gets in there and can cause madness. Arsenic, which is a pretty common poison name we hear about in films. That's actually an elemental poison. It's found naturally in the environment. It can get in drinking water, but it's a metal. It's actually a metal.
That's good, because
so really interesting.
To be healthy, I prefer my poisons to be all natural.
Yeah, me too. I'm more of an animal plant.
Yeah,
poison
I
guy.
like organically sourced poison.
So with animals, we've got things that are actually more venomous: spiders and snakes and toads, salamanders, even bull's blood at one point was considered a poison. It's not actually a poison, but they would put like bull's blood in things to poison other people. It didn't actually poison.
Weird.
The most common poisons that you hear about come from plants. And the reason these plants evolve poison, I think anybody in the sciences could guess, right? It's to fight off predators. It's to keep the reason caffeine exists is to keep things from eating that plant. Didn't work. The reason cannabinoids exist is to keep things from eating that plant. Didn't work.
Whoops.
The reason poisons exist is the same. It's just a pest control method. It's a way to fight off predators.
Well, there is the theory in like evolutionary biology that some plants, right, these substances that we have now since used, like we cultivate them, cannabinoids, nicotine, caffeine, right?
Yeah.
It's part of
capsaicin.
It's like
the spiciness.
Yeah, it's more like a plant strategy at a certain point to actually get like humans or other animals to consume them and then spread the seeds farther out. Not that plants make decisions about strategies, but like that's how it came.
They're
to
out
be.
there being like, let's
do
see.
I kill this
what
guy?
Leaf do I grow today?
Do I kill this guy or send him on the trip of his life?
Porque no los dos, one than the other.
Mushrooms. Anyway.
So plants with the most common poisons. There are several. I'm sure you could name one. I bet you if you just pick a poison that you can think of, especially if you're super into, I don't know, like Victorian era stuff, you can probably think of a poison off the top of your head. Do you want to try?
I went classical. I've been thinking hemlock for a long time.
Hemlock? Yeah, totally. Killed Socrates. Very important poison in kind of literary history. Another one that you think of a lot is opium. Is a poison. But there's also things like hellebore and yew extract, actinite, cochleum. Anyway, belladonna.
Oh, nightshade.
Yeah, exactly. Nightshade, mandrake. Those are all belladonna alkaloids. There's all these different things that we associate. Again, I say all these, they sound literary. Like they just are things that when we hear those words, we think, ooh, somebody wrote a book where somebody was poisoned with hellebore or belladonna. It's just, I say romantic, but I don't mean romantic. I mean, like, it is romanticized because poisons are a very interesting part of human history. Interestingly, Romans didn't seem to use cyanide, but they did use a lot of the plants I just mentioned. Peaches are native to Persia, Samaria, Iraq, and Romans didn't seem to know the difference between poisonous mushrooms and fungus. So they wouldn't eat mushrooms, really, because they wouldn't be able to tell if they were poison or not, I guess. I mean, I'm sure they would eat them, but like they weren't like, oh, this is a poisonous mushroom. This one is a not poisonous mushroom that I could find. I found writings saying they didn't know the difference, but I didn't find writings that would contradict that. And there were professional poisoners in ancient Rome as well. People who were your go-to to go and get somebody poisoned. Hemlock and honey was favored by the witch Canidia, and actinite was called the mother-in-law's poison. So that's pretty fun. Sorry, go ahead,
Oh
Julian.
no, it's just funny because there's historically there's a lot of ties between poison and specifically women. A lot,
Yes,
because it's
yeah,
often
it's
considered,
associated with women.
Yeah, like the women's preferred way of execution. But I'm gonna be honest, if I had to like face someone in single combat, or maybe just like boop, just a little drop, in a drink. I mean, it's just the smarter option. Let's be real. Like,
yeah, it's much more economical.
Yeah.
It's better for you, better for them, maybe.
Easier to get away with the murder, right? Like, if
you don't have to actually go and hurt yourself,
get all covered in blood,
So it's like a win-win.
Yeah, I just want to say. But it's funny that there's the mother-in-law's poison. I wouldn't be surprised if the more this goes on, the more Mithridates V's wife was his poisoner, right? Like, so yeah, that comes up a lot historically.
And I didn't go and look into if that's misogyny, but I'm gonna just
I
assume
think
that
so.
There's some of that
I think
in
so.
there.
I think it
seems
seems
like
with,
a safe bet.
These women can't trust them; they're sneaky. Yeah, I think it's. I definitely think there's
this
undercurrents
woman is too
of misogyny.
powerful because she poisoned, and it's like ugh. Anyway,
yeah.
I also wanted to similar ughing. I wanted to get away from the Eurocentricity of most of the Western knowledge on this, so I looked specifically for ancient Chinese medicine, which they found a lot. There's a lot of poisons there as well. Cinnabar, which is actually a mercury-based compound. Again, actinite, mother-in-law's poison. The bezoar, which you would recognize from the Harry Potter lore. That's a ox gallstone. Cannabis, which is native to East Asia, was considered a poison. And a lot of these, though,
that's funny because
both.
I thought if you had so much cannabis you died, you'd technically been stoned to death.
No, inconceivable. A lot of these, especially in ancient Chinese medicine, were considered both medicinal and poison. That's pretty common. Like a little bit of poison under a dose might be helpful. Pharmacology, or the word pharmacy in English, comes from the Greek word pharmakon, which means both remedy and poison. So it's not just like the Chinese out here poisoning people. It was just, we wanted to learn what these very powerful things that we were finding in plants and in animals and in minerals could do for us. Sometimes it would kill us, but maybe it would make you stronger, or maybe it would do this thing for you. In the ancient Americas, the cashew, which we've talked about in previous episodes, the fruit is okay, but the raw nut contains urushiol, which is a toxin, and it was known likely to indigenous tribes to make them ill. Cassava, also known as yucca, when you eat a yucca fry, that contains two chemicals, linamarin and linamarase, which are evolved as repellents for animals, but when it's chewed, crushed, they mix and release cyanide, so you can die from the cyanide gas.
Whoops.
So the ancient Amazonians, amazingly, realized if they ground the cassava on a washboard-like shredder of rocks or fish teeth, the cyanide gas would come out into the air and not into their mouth. So then they could rinse it, squeeze the cassava, drain it, clear the plant of the linamarin and limamarase and other toxins, and then dry it in the sun and cook it. Who figured that out? Amazing.
Love how determined humans are to eat anything.
Yeah. Yes.
There's so many things that it's like the cashews, right? Oh, this is deadly. Yeah. But what if I try something different to prepare it? Then can I eat it?
What?
I just know it's delicious.
What if I dip it in water? Here, right. Aaron, try this. Aaron,
all right.
Try this now.
Thanks. What is that?
Aaron Aronson's
Oh, we've canonically...
Okay, now next I'm going to put it over the fire. Aaron, try this.
Aaron Aronson Jr.
Come try this. Oh, he lived.
Oh.
Okay, next time let's cook it over the fire again. That was delicious.
Yeah, and now we'll write a cute Christmas song about it.
Interestingly, cassava, to your point about it's like a staple crop now. So they figured out not only how to eat it, but they made it like a base crop for the southern hemisphere of the Americas for thousands of years, which is pretty awesome. So poisons work in a bunch of different ways. We've talked about a lot of poisons, but basically poisons work in different mechanisms of action, but they generally follow the alkaloid path, if you will. It's basically a chemical. binds to something in your body, and it binds in such a way that causes us damage. So anything that is a naturally occurring organic compound that contains at least one nitrogen atom and is basic is an alkaloid. Caffeine is an alkaloid. Nightshade, solanine in tomatoes, tobacco, peppers, and potatoes, those are all alkaloids. And again, they're insecticides. They're like trying to stop you from...
Cyanide. Cyanide's just carbon and nitrogen, so I guess that would be an alkaloid too then, by that definition.
Right. It's got at least one nitrogen atom and is basic. So the alkaloid of hemlock is cononine, I think is how to pronounce it. It allegedly tastes bitter, herby, grassy, mildly lemony, kind of dirt-like. It smells very intense and unpleasant, and when you consume it, it affects your motor nerves, causing paralysis and asphyxia.
I love how you have the whole flavor profile. Was somebody, as they were dying, describing, like, oh, it's got notes of earth to
It's very earthy. I can't breathe. And so what it does is it affects the nerves, and it does that through a mechanism of action, which means that alkaloid is binding to something that would have likely done something else, which I'll come back to in a second.
Okay.
Cyanide, which you just mentioned, the mechanism of action is that it binds to the ferric ion cytochrome oxidase 3 within the mitochondria. Basically, it disrupts the electron transport chain within the cells, and so you cannot make energy and make ATP from oxygen, which means you basically are starving your cells and you die.
Yeah.
It's not awesome. And so it just gets in the way of your body doing its natural process. Because iron is used in hemoglobin to move oxygen around. And so this binds to the iron in your cells so that they can't move oxygen around. If it can't move oxygen around, you can't burn it to make energy. You can't burn it to make energy. Your cells die.
Yeah, you're gonna run out of that energy pretty quick. Yeah, and your brain is gonna build up like toxicity inside the neurons, and same for your muscle. Right. Yeah, it's gonna go bad in a hurry.
So that cyanide as a poison suffocates you at the cellular level.
Yikes.
And I point that out specifically. Do you think that's something that you could become immune to by taking it often? If I took it a bunch of times, does the chemistry not chemistry anymore?
I'm going to go with absolutely not. Like,
right. Exactly.
No way.
So, arsenic, it can cause cell injury and death by multiple mechanisms. It's not an alkaloid because it's a heavy metal, as we mentioned. It's also not organic, but it interferes also with cellular respiration, causing impaired gluconeogenesis. Essentially, a similar idea. It stops you from making glucose energy through the pyruvate oxidation pathway and the tricarboxylic acid cycle, basically the Krebs cycle.
Right.
So it's chemical reactions that help us make energy with carbohydrates and fatty acids, and it stops that, again, by just getting in the way of other stuff.
Yeah. Basically throwing a wrench into the cellular machinery is what all of these are doing.
Right. And so I've got a bunch of other ones, but just in the sake of time, I think you get the idea. Yeah. So these poisons are like skeleton keys for some chemistry in our cell, and they bind with or undo something that would have happened had they not been there. And so building up a tolerance for a poison seems, in my mind, very unlikely.
Yeah.
However, I mentioned Venom. Venom works differently than poison.
Okay.
Poison, like cyanide, interferes chemically with the cell. It blocks cell respiration. But something like venom attacks the body through a different process, the protein channels. So it's basically an enzyme that breaks down tissue. So a snake would bite you, get venom in your body, and in that poison, or that venom in this case, is enzymes that are pre-digesting you, like super saliva. Some have non-enzymatic proteins, but a lot of them have enzymes. If you dose with sublethal bits of venom, That is different than poison. Alcohol is a poison, technically, and as most people who drink alcohol know, low levels of alcohol is fun for some people, high levels can kill, but if you consume it regularly, your body starts to adapt, and you have a, quote, higher tolerance for alcohol. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're not getting affected by it, but your liver is making enzymes that break down the alcohol more readily because it's prepared to break it down.
Yes,
And
that makes sense.
Venom works similarly, where like if you were to dose yourself with sublethal bits of venom, you might be able to build up a tolerance to it.
That sounds like your immune system,
Yes.
starting to recognize it, right? If it's an enzyme, then it's a protein that's got a specific shape to do a specific job, and if your body can recognize some feature of it and attack it and change the shape of that protein, you can render it inert.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, we all are quite familiar with the word spike protein.
Yay.
On the Corona-19 virus. It's vulnerable if you have antibodies to it. It is a protein like any other. That's what antibodies do. And so, what if, to go back to Tessa's question, Iocaine isn't a poison?
Yeah, I was going to...
What if Iocaine is a venom?
Like some powdered
me
snake venom
Play
or something?
you
Yeah.
a clip.
Inhale this, but do not touch.
I smell nothing.
What you do not smell is called Iocaine powder. It is odorless, tasteless, dissolves instantly in liquid, and is among the more deadly poisons.
Got it?
I was just really happy there to see that again. So I was prepared to watch the remaining hour and 10 minutes of that movie. But okay.
No, it's excellent. Okay. Venom is odorless. Venom's color is often white, yellowish, or colorless. Venom, when seized from snakes, can be powdered. Venom dissolves instantly in liquid. Quote, the constituents of snake venom can be preserved for a longer period if dried into a solid crystal form and stored properly. This crystal mass dissolves readily in blood and water. Inconceivable!
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
One of the most toxic venoms to mice is the inland taipan, Oxyuranus microlepidatus.
That's the snake, I assume?
That's the snake.
Okay.
Because Iocaine comes from Australia, as everyone knows. And Australia is entirely peopled with criminals. And criminals are used to having people not trust them, as you are not trusted by me, so I can clearly not choose the wine in front of you.
Truly, you have a dizzying intellect.
Wait till I get going! Where was I?
Australia.
Yes, Australia.
Wait till I get going!
Where was I? It's Australia.
Guess where the inland taipan is from, Julian?
Oh, the home of all venomous snakes under your bed right now, listener.
That's
right. Australia, of course.
Australia. So the inland taipan's venom contains a spreading factor called hyaluronidase enzyme. It increases the rate of absorption of the venom. I'm reading now from the University of California, San Diego. The inland taipan is the most venomous terrestrial snake known to man, perhaps the most toxic of all snakes in the world. Envenomation signifies a true medical emergency. The venom can cause neurotoxic, hemolytic, and coagulopathic reactions. Paralysis and death could ensue rapidly. Inconceivable! Julian, do you want to make the point for me here?
Paralysis and death
could ensue rapidly.
Like
from an odorless, whitish yellow or colorless, powdered substance that dissolves instantly in liquid.
So what we're learning is
from Australia.
What we're learning is Wesley does not know the difference between venom and poison. That's so disappointing. I look at his character in a completely different light now. Or he was doing it just to trick his opponent in this battle of wits. Maybe. That's amazing. I love this this pop culture detective work that you've done.
Thank you. So, in reality, Iocaine powder is totally fictional. And I do want to mention, I didn't specifically mention that venom having a taste, because Venom does have a taste. It tastes sweet or tangy, like a tangy water, people describe it as. The thing is, you couldn't drink Venom. You can drink it because the Venom proteins are broken down in the stomach. That's what the stomach is for. So you'd really not be able to drink Venom to die. And I was like, oh man, so it can't be. But then I discovered something.
What?
Let's go back to this clip.
Oh.
Inhale this, but do not touch.
I smell nothing.
He poisoned him right there. That was it. That was the moment.
Oh, yeah, I'm so glad you're so excited.
Oh my gosh, Wesley. Oh, the man was already dead.
Like anyone in the first year of chem lab, I was a chemistry major for a year. The first thing you're taught in chem lab is to never put your nose over anything.
Don't go
Waft.
whiffing stuff.
Always waft.
Oh.
And Vazini, he just, I smell nothing.
Oh,
And it's
my
like-
word. Wesley, you sly dog.
I know. It's almost like he's a pirate.
Oh.
And he lied to him. And the whole battle of wits was not the cups at all,
my
but
gosh.
Vazini's trust in a pirate.
Who brought his own poison to a battle of wits?
Yes,
Vizzini.
and suggested the battle of wits.
Oh.
Well, I guess Vizzini suggested it, but he was just like, I'm going to bring this thing. And okay, so there's a study from 2005 called Hypersensitivity to Airborne Spitting Cobra Snake Venom. I know it's not the taipan venom, but if Vizzini inhaled the venom and didn't drink it, it would still venom because it goes right into the bloodstream.
Amazing. Amazing.
Inconceivable!
It's so good. Oh.
So, Tessa, we probably can't build up a tolerance to poison. You can antidote them and pre-antidote them, which is what Mythratism did. But Wesley, you could maybe bring up a tolerance to venoms, but he may not have even had to. He might have killed him right there at the beginning, turned around, done nothing with the cups, and just put regular old wine out there.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes later, Vazini died because he doesn't need him to pick a cup. He just needs him to die so he can get his lady back. So, Rob Reiner, please, let's talk about this. Is this what happened? I need to know.
Much like Mythratism, perhaps, having people believe that he is immune to this Iocaine powder adds to the mythos of the dread pirate Roberts.
Oh, I love
Oh, this is great. Oh, I loved all of this.
So, thank you, Tessa, for your question.
Wait, I have one important historical thing I want to question you about.
Oh, please.
When Mythratism, eventually took the throne again from his mother, right? Did he swear vengeance on his mother? Do you know?
I don't know.
Did he, when he met his mother, did he say, hello?
I feel like...
My name is Mythratism the Sixth.
Oh, God. Oh, no.
You killed my father.
You killed my father.
Prepare to die. Is there any record of that?